Filling out the application for the Wendy's High School Heisman Award, I didn't really know that much would come.
It's teamwork. You communicate with...
What that involves is making sure I communicate and coordinate with each of the guidance departments.
We're building a ramp for someone who really
Don't
can't...
give up just because it's hard, because I had a lot of times where I thought I wasn't going to make it.
Hi, welcome to Hometown Heroes. I'm your host, Andy Kitzrow. Joining me today virtually is Magic Mapp. Looking forward to catching up with Magic and see what he's been doing the last few years. Magic, welcome.
Thank you.
So Magic, we have not talked for a few years. It's been since 2013, the last time we chatted, and you were featured on our Hometown Heroes show. So what has been going on in your life these last 7 years?
Well, I graduated from Towson University with my bachelor's in elementary education. Then I returned home, and I've been teaching at Fruitland Intermediate School for the last 6 years in third grade, teach math, science, and social studies.
So how has that experience been at Fruitland Intermediate, the first 5 years versus past year going virtual and having to maybe do even a hybrid? How have you been transition to that and then become more accustomed to it these days?
Yes, I think initially in the classroom, I used a lot of technology like Google Classroom, Nearpod, Kahoot, and those kind of things. So it was just a lot of the things that normally we would do paper and trying to translate that into a digital format, and then adjusting some of the activities that we would do in a lesson to work virtually has been challenging. And even though there are many platforms out there, we have less time with the kids, so then there's more time spent. You have to spend time showing them how to use the tool, and it's very different with the kids not with you. Trying to teach them how to navigate the Zoom and then go and do something else in the web browser is very difficult. So it's been overwhelming at times.
I can imagine. And so what, feedback are you getting from your youngsters and even your parents of this adjustment? I'm assuming some are doing better than others, and just overall, what's that?
I think the ones that are tech savvy, who use technology regularly, they are adjusting better, even though they still have some challenges. And I think most of the kids are adjusting and liking it a little bit. I mean, you participate. I think the work completion is a little challenging for some, like getting them to submit things online, to check back and see what they've done. Parents have voiced a lot of concern with keeping their child motivated to do the work once the Zoom is over. Once class is over and they have to go do the work asynchronously, they struggle with keeping the child motivated to do it. And they struggle themselves with figuring out where to find things. They have to toggle between so many different classrooms within Google Classroom for all their different teachers. And then all the different Zoom links has been a lot for them as well. So it's been a lot as a teacher managing those emotions that I feel, and then trying to help the kids and their families comfortable within this whole virtual learning, even when they at times are really defeated and are not wanting to continue with the virtual learning. They want to come back to school. So that's been another thing as well, trying to communicate with the families as best I can.
Yeah, I can only imagine, being in a professional setting, primarily working with other adults and understanding even that struggle, to then be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old trying to navigate a complex system too. It's got to be challenging, and I feel for them. It also is, I'm assuming, nice that you had 5 years under your belt, already in the classroom ahead of time. Have you talked to any of your peers who, either last year was their first year or this was their first year, and they've just started right into this virtual learning arena and didn't really have any other, this is kind of all they've known?
Yeah, we do have one team member on our third grade team that just started last year. So this is her second year. And I think with all of us around her, that's helped. Just and then everyone making resources and sharing things. I think it kind of works for all of us. We all kind of tell everyone that it's kind of all of our first year all over again, because virtual is new for everyone. Even if you were using technology in the classroom, going completely virtual teaching is new for everyone. So we kind of been telling everyone that it's everyone's first year, and we're all learning again. So that kind of helps put us back on that level playing field where we're all trying to help each other.
How is that from a morale standpoint? Are you guys leaning on each other, helping each other out, trying to get through?
Yeah, we have a team like group chat that we constantly are in, just updating each other with things, reminding each other about important events or deadlines coming up. We have like weekly PLC meetings as a team. And then sometimes we might meet with our content area like math or ELA. So I think we're working really well with trying to keep each other updated and sharing resources and just being a helping hand to each other. I think because we're all feeling it, being overwhelmed and stressed and exhausted. But when we find things that are useful that we think everyone else can use, we share it out to hopefully lighten the load a little bit.
What else have you learned about yourself or your leadership style or your teaching technique that you might not have really thought about or even worked with prior to COVID that is now kind of this new normal for you?
When I plan and things like that, I kind of have my one-track mind of how I think it will work for myself within my classroom for my students. And I share resources when I can. I take resources that are given, but most of the time, I usually like to go the path that I see. And so I think, and then now being in the classroom, by myself, there's no kids in here. So whenever I'm teaching, it's just all right here on this one little screen. I guess realizing how much interaction there really was, the people that come in and out of your classroom, just the little sounds, the desk moving or someone fidgeting with something in there. I think that I've noticed a lot, the interactions. I didn't realize how much I liked walking around the classroom and not sitting at my desk. It's I echo more now because there's no one in the room.
Yeah. Let's rewind the clock just a little bit. So, this is year 6, but, you can go back to day 1 or year 1. If you're a fresh teacher at Fruitland, this is what you want to do. You want to go into it. Tell me a little bit about what that experience was year 1. When
I look back at my first year, I feel like I've improved so much because my first year I just felt like I taught every subject. So I wasn't departmentalized. And then my second year, we became a departmentalized school. So some people taught ELA and others taught math, science, social studies. And so my first year I taught everything, and there wasn't really a math curriculum. There were standards that they gave you and a guide, but you came up with the resources or lesson. And so I was trying to use things that my team teachers were using that had been here for a while. But I just felt like when I look back the year after that, and then my third year, my fourth year, I just felt like I lost a lot of time with the kids. I think management-wise, instruction-wise, I felt like I didn't reach every child. And whereas now, my 6th year, I feel like I can pick up on those things more. I know what works and what doesn't. I like the math curriculum that we're using. It's easy to follow. It had a lot of resources. So I think not having that my first year was the struggle. But building on that afterwards, I feel like I've improved a lot.
Great. If we run the clock even a little bit more, thinking about, you mentioned since we've last talked, you've graduated from college. Did you always want to be a teacher? Was that decision the last couple of years? And tell me about, the last couple of years in college and that transition from the college life into, the profession.
Yes, I would say I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was 7, in 2nd grade. That's just always my track. And then originally when I went into college, I wanted to be a teacher, then a principal, and then a superintendent. And then it started around my sophomore year in college. In a couple of my courses, we were looking at Waiting on Superman with Michelle Rhee, and we were looking at other documentaries about education and how the United States was very far behind in many of the subject areas and just not like academically competitive with other countries. And so I started to get interested in education policy, and I wanted to maybe go that route and see like how I could help better our education system from outside of the classroom. And then I I also finished my master's. So I went into school, I got my elementary education degree. And then I just finished my master's this past spring in curriculum and instruction. So I am wanting to go into curriculum development, writing curriculum, going into that field. So it's a little bit outside of education policy, but I just knew I wanted to eventually work behind the scenes, not always be in the classroom, because there's only so much I can do in the classroom,
Right.
with what the director we're given.
Right. Well, since you are in the classroom, and the show is Hometown Heroes, tell me a little bit about how you feel knowing that these kids are looking up to you. You are their front line, the person that they spend most of their day with, as their hero, their teacher, their leader, role model even.
Yeah, I've always found that having the kids at school, a lot of the kids like going home don't have that support, that system at home to help. So I knew that in the classroom, like I need to make that time, like maximize it as much as possible. And there's always trying to connect with the kids. I think growing up here, even going away to college, but coming back, like I could connect connect with them at a local level and with the school that I went to or the things that I did here, and being able to see them at their baseball games or their football games or basketball games, like any sports activity I tried to make and go there to just to be that extra support and to show them that I'm not just their teacher. Like I do care about their interests and the things they do outside of school. So I like to learn about what the kids are doing and their interests because they can teach me so much as well. So I like that even though I'm their teacher and I'm the adult, that the respect goes both ways and that I want them to have that same sense of power and ownership of the classroom as well. Yes, it's my classroom, but in order to get the most out of anything I do, I need to have the kids buy into it.
Yeah, I think you're doing a lot of great things there in the classroom. It's a really great perspective. So let's hop outside the classroom. Let's talk about what else you've been doing. I hear you've been doing some traveling. You've been attending some events and meeting some really cool people. During
our kickoff event in the county, I met Ron Clark. He came and he did a talk experience with the entire Wycomico County staff. We had a chance to do a book signing, so I purchased a few of his books, and he was able to sign them, and just to talk and do some photos with him. I know a couple of schools in our county are using his house model. Our school isn't, but other schools have shared like how it's working for them and all the specifics in that. So it was really cool because I had heard a little bit about him, and then he was just very inspiring, very candid in how he spoke, but you knew that he had a passion for students and for education and just wanting to help each and every child, no matter where they came from, no matter their background. So that was a very interesting and just a valuable experience. It was just really nice. Before that, a couple of years ago, I was able to travel to Greece with the Global Exploration Educators Organization, so GEEO, and a few of the other people in the group, it was a small, like 6 or 7 group, were teachers, but we all came together. It was just a really nice trip. We spent 2 weeks in Greece, and we traveled from all the different islands and just a lot of different activities like cooking with a family there, hiking on the Samaria Gorge, and walking around all the towns and eating in different restaurants and stuff like that. So that was really nice. It was a nice trip. I really enjoyed it, and I even brought that information back to the school. And with my class, we do a study every year where we pick a country, which is kind of the purpose of the trip, to go and to learn, and then to bring that back and use it in your classroom. That's awesome. That's really cool to be able to get that international experience and then see how you can translate that into your classroom. So if you're watching and you're thinking about a hometown hero in your life and would like to nominate him to appear on our show, please do so.
You just need to contact George Whitehead at 410-749-1480 or email him at giwhitehead@salisbury.edu. Now, Magic, what are those next steps, next 5 years, 10 years? What are some of your immediate goals when you do get the kids back in, but then also long-term?
Now with my master's, I want to look to further my career and to eventually leave the classroom and either work with a company to develop curriculum or working within a school system as a curriculum coordinator or specialist, like helping to either develop curriculum that the teachers would use or to help, facilitate and I guess better what's already being used wherever I go. So that's my next step, is to kind of move out of the classroom and to work more with curriculum writing and coordinating in that aspect.
So thinking about curriculum as a whole, and just even the education system as a whole, kind of giving a plug for public education here. Why is it so vital to not only invest in the public education system, but to also provide resources and collaboration and give teachers some freedom to do some exploration and even develop curriculum, et cetera?
I think it's important for the teachers to have in the curriculum that they're using or what's working and what's not, because they're the ones that are implementing it in the classroom. So even though the experts behind it push it out and they have the specific idea in mind, I think once the teachers use it and then they have the feedback, I think the only way the curriculum can get better is knowing what worked and what didn't, but knowing from a teacher's standpoint, like what was the pros or cons of that curriculum or that assessment. Giving teachers that power, because I think sometimes it's just like we're thrown with things. I know this year it's a lot of that with like, here's this new program, here's this new piece of the curriculum that we want you to use, or this new strategy, and there's so many different things, but it's like really focusing on to make sure that we are truly like reaching the students, and we can't do that if we're all over the place with all the different things that we're trying to use. So I think giving teachers that power there is what's going to improve our education system and public education in general, because so much of it is that teachers are stressed and they're overworked and unable to give their all sometimes with the students. And so, families think that they can either homeschooling or private education because it's a smaller class size and there's more, resources available, and the teacher can hone in on their child more. But I think those things can still be done in the public education system. It's just that depending on the county or the state, there's so many different things that play a role in it. So I think you have to understand that if we allow the teachers to have some say, and those things can change.
You mentioned early on that you had already been trying to incorporate as much technology into your classroom before the pandemic, so the transition was easier for you. Is there anything else as we transition back into in-class teaching, in-school teaching, that from this experience that you're going to take with you or continue to try to utilize as a teacher within your framework of your school day?
Well, they do plan for us to return on November 30th in a hybrid fashion. So some kids would be at school and some kids would be home. I do plan to continue. Most of it will still be virtual. Like the kids will still have their laptops. They're still going to be expected to go into Google Classroom to do assignments because we won't be doing any paper assignments. So I think everything that I've been doing virtually with the kids, I would continue to do, even with some still in the classroom. I guess it's just I could redirect a little better. I could see that they are really focused and on task. I think using some of those like apps and those sites that we're using now, I think using those in the classroom will just allow, obviously they can't use manipulatives. They can't use different, blocks or counters. They can't really interact too much with one another. So some of those applications on the computer allow for them to manipulate things on the screen and still work through a problem using a manipulative, even though it might be virtual. So I think those kind of things will be even more important going forward, because I think even if we all were to come back eventually, I think those things would still need to kind of be in place because interaction is going to be completely different.
I agree. So we're going to rewind the clock really far. We're going to go all the way back to you as that 7-year-old that you talked about. You've always known that you wanted to be a teacher. What made you know that you wanted to be go into the education field and teach other people?
I think I always found myself as a leader, like always like wanting not just to help others, but I guess to help others, but knowing like I had a vision, and so I knew like going into teaching would help me to inspire other people to kind of see that within themselves. You know, my mother was a teacher for 32 years in high school in Worcester County. So I would call her one of my inspirations. And I feel like I had good teachers. I wouldn't say any specific one stood out. But I think like my education in Wycomico County was good. I think it prepared me. But I also think with the support of my family and that strong backbone at my home also helped propel me as well, with that combined with the education I received in this school system. So I think it's just within myself, I kind of just thought teaching was for me. And then as I got older and there were opportunities like the Youth Leadership Academy and the Youth Action Team that I was a part of, and then Educators of America at we had at Parkside High School, and then like the teacher practicum I was able to do within that at Prince Street my senior year in high school here in Wycomico County. I think all that kind of assured me that that's what I wanted to do, and then even my time at Towson and working in Baltimore City and Baltimore County as well helped me know that teaching was still something I wanted to do.
Yeah, so we first got to know each other right around that Youth Action Team and Youth Leadership Academy 2007, 2008 that you participated in that event. I know that's 12 years ago. Are there still some lessons learned in that experience or things that you knew then or have grown with?
I guess this planning, like planning an event or is similar to planning a lesson or a field trip, like just the planning process and what you originally envisioned doesn't always like the way that you want it. And I think that's something I've learned all through teaching as well, but Youth Leadership Academy and other organizations I've been a part of, doing the homecoming committee at Towson University, just things that when you plan things, they're not always going to end up how you first, and so you have to be flexible and adjust. And I think that's something that I've gotten much better with as a teacher, and then even in my personal life as well, just knowing that it's not always going to plan out, but just take it with stride and just move on and try it.
Does that ever cross your mind like, hey, I may be helping steer somebody to maybe want to be a me when they grow up or explore this field?
A couple of years ago, I had a parent reach out at the end of the school year, and she informed me that her son was so pleased to have had me that third grade year. That a question always came up at home, like, could men be teachers? He didn't, he had never had a male teacher. Granted, it's only third grade, but he had mentioned, could men be teachers? And, his grandmother was a teacher, I believe. And then she just said that it inspired him to know that, men can be teachers and they can be good teachers. So I think that stuck with me, just knowing that, a child was actually unsure, like a man could even be a teacher. I think I know it always sticks out to me as a male role model for my kids. A lot of them have never had a male teacher when they come into third grade. And then being African American on top of that, I think a lot of the kids have not had an African American teacher and then an African American male teacher. We're very far and few between in the education system. So I know that that's a lot on my shoulders to make sure that I'm being that role model for the kids, so that they can see that there's more out there for them, not just for all students, but more specifically also for our African American community too. I just feel like sometimes they don't see the different avenues that are available for them. It's just sports and wanting to make money. And I think I always try to make the point of bringing in people who are artists, who are working in our community communications, the WMDT station. I had Trayvon Miles come in one time. I had Mr. Mike Morris, who was an artist, and he taught at Bennett High School, come in to the school, and just to talk to the kids about what they do, and so they would see that. But then for my African American students to see that there is something beyond maybe what they, see at home or what they think is available for them. So I think that as a teacher, that's my responsibility to broaden their horizons and show them what's out there for all ethnicities, but especially our minorities who sometimes don't see those opportunities available for them.
That's great. I think that's very important piece that you brought up. Whether role models or teachers, having people who look or identify with you helps, I think, people along that path, because they're like, wow, if he can do it or she can do it, I feel like it's possible. And even just the connecting piece. Personally or professionally, do you have kind of your next steps on where you want to go?
I was nominated for Teacher of the Year last year, but I couldn't accept the nomination because you have to be teaching 5 full years. That was one of my first goals when I graduated. I wanted to be Teacher of the Year. Like, this would be my first year being eligible to take a nomination and to go through with the process. So that's still one of my goals, to be Teacher of the Year. And then eventually moving out of the classroom and moving into a curriculum field or position, whether it's with a county or with a private company for education. And then I want to travel a little bit more. And I want to go to France and Italy. The company that I went with Greece, they were doing a whole tour through France and Italy for 2 weeks. So I did want to try to do that eventually. And I eventually wanted to go to some tennis tournaments. So traveling is like a big part of what I want to do next, when I have that time in my schedule and the funds for it too. When I go again, there are things I want to just make sure I focus more on, the cultural aspect and the different interactions you have. I think there are probably things that I just overlooked while I was in Greece, my first time internationally, traveling internationally. So I think going again next time, I know the things, my eyes will be open to more.
That's great. Well, Magic, I don't have any other questions. I really appreciate you spending the last several minutes with me talking about what's going on in your life and catching up. I do wish you the best for the rest of this school year, and some of those future goals, and good luck being Teacher of the Year. And that's a great accomplishment if you're able to achieve that.
I just want to say thanks to you, thanks to George as well, because just to keep the lines of communication open, and just remembering, I know I'm still local and things like that, but it's nice to know that you guys still remember me and you still reach out to want to hear from me. It makes me feel like that time spent those summers when I was a late 7th, 8th grader and going into high school. It was just really important time that you guys helped me become who I am now, and so it's just nice to know that the connection's still there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's good to keep in touch with people who are doing great things and give them an opportunity to share, not only with us, but with the rest of the community. We like to highlight role models, and that's why it's called Hometown Heroes, and we really appreciate that. So keep up the good work, and we'll probably see you again in a few years.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Andy Kitzrow, and I will see you next time.
If you'd like to nominate a hometown hero just like me and highlight their story, you can contact George Whitehead at 410-749-1480 or email at giwhitehead@salisbury.edu.